topical issue on the perspectives with ABIOLA OLAIFA. Today we're looking at anger, stress, and trauma management. Today we are live on MOGBEDE Radio TV. MOGBEDE Radio TV is available online, is available on YouTube Live, available on Facebook Live. Our website is also radio.mogbede.co.uk. You can tune in to listen to us live. We air on Mondays at 9 p.m. Nigerian time and 8 p.m. UK time. We're also available on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Our handle is MOGBEDE Radio TV. We're also available on YouTube. Our handle is MOGBEDE TV or MOGBEDE Radio on YouTube. Please join us and be a part of our programs. We're here 24/7. And today we want to welcome you specially to this special edition. Today we're looking at anger, stress, and trauma management. I'm going to be looking deeply into what anger is, what stress is, and what leads to trauma. So these are all intertwined, and we're going to look into it in a bit more critical today, so that we can understand how anger, stress, and trauma are linked together. First, I'm going to start with anger. What is anger? What does it mean to be angry? So it's a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. So it's an emotion that can be characterized by feeling antagonistic towards somebody or event that happens to us. So it means that if someone is wronged us, we get angry. And then there are several ways we express the anger. So today we'll be looking at the types of anger that people go through. We have aggressive anger. So the anger that is expressed outwardly through behaviors like yelling, physical aggression, or verbal threat. I'm sure we must have experienced it at a time or the other, or seen people express anger in this way. We also have passive anger, what we call passive anger. That's the anger that is held in, often through passive aggressive behavior. So it's not the kind of anger that people easily show. A few people are angry, but they don't show it. So this is what we class as passive anger. So, and also we have assertive anger, anger that is expressed in a direct and straightforward way with the goal of problem solving. So sometimes when somebody offends and you just let them know that, oh, what you've done to me, I'm not happy with it, and that goes. So they apologize or we look for restitution, and those kind of anger are just assertive anger. It's not the kind of anger that you hold inwards or the one that you really want to express. We also have what we call irrational anger. So anger that is disproportionate or unjustified in relation to the triggering event. If, for example, somebody did something that you don't like, and suddenly you just want to maybe get physical with them, that's not really deserved. Or maybe somebody's driving in a way you don't like, and you just get down out of your car and you just want to beat them up. Those are the kind of anger we call irrational. So we have to look at different ways to approach anger. Then we now have a more intense one, and that's referred to as rage. So this kind of anger is a form of anger that can be powerful and sometimes very violent, and sometimes it could go beyond where you can imagine. And I must say that a lot of people now express rage instead of what you can manage. They go to the extent of rage. And what leads to this, we're going to look into that a bit more as we progress. So anger has got stages as well. So the stages of anger is triggering. So what triggers it? So triggering effect. So an accident that provokes the anger. So what is the trigger? What made you so angry? So that's the first stage when it comes to anger. Then what escalates the anger? Sometimes if you've done something to somebody and the person says sorry, you just think, oh, all right, let's go, let it go, that's it, that's the end of it. But if somebody did something to you and they say, so what, what do you know who I am? Do you know what can you do? And things like that tends to escalate the anger. The anger begins to increase in intensity, and before you know what, it leads to the second stage, to the third stage of the stages of anger, and that's the crisis stage. So that's when the anger peaks, and both of you are now at the tip of doing something which is very irrational. Then after that, it leads to what's called post-crisis depression, and that's the feeling of exhaustion, guilt, or regret after the anger subsides. Maybe somebody has done something to you. What they've done to you is not something that you should have been that angry, but you said things you shouldn't have said. You've done things you shouldn't have done. And that's the next level of anger. So then we looked at anger and a bit of introduction into anger. Now let's look at stress. So what is stress? Stress is how we react when we feel under pressure or threatened. So a lot of people get stressed and they do things that they shouldn't have done. You know, it usually happens when we are in a situation that we don't feel we can manage or control. So people feel stressed, they feel overwhelmed. So stress can cause emotional and physical symptoms, and chronic stress can lead to serious health conditions. So which can stem from cognitive or emotional factors like worries, negative thoughts, and perceived threat. It can affect the mental well-being of an individual. So stress can be very dangerous, and it can lead to several health and physical issues that you will begin to experience. So looking at it, so how can stress affect us? You know, short term, we have different types of stress, and we have what's called short-term stress. So this can be helpful. You know, these are the kind of stress that we experience. If, for example, we're at work and we just want to meet deadline or to avoid danger. So this kind of stress are stress that we do at work just to make sure that we can meet deadlines and avoid danger or avoid repercussions. For example, if there's a project set out for you and you're not meeting the project, you just want to go through it to make sure that you can achieve the deadline or the day that's been given to you. So these are classed as short-term stress. Then we now have the stress we classify as long-term stress. Long-term stress can lead to physical and mental health problems such as anxiety, depression, and heart diseases. Chronic stress now is the next stage of stress, a constant feeling of being overwhelmed and pressured over a long time is what we class as chronic stress. You know, and so when you experience chronic stress, it has side effect which we'll look into as we move further. All right, so then let's look at the symptoms of stress. So what happens? When do you know that you're under stress? What are the things that you experience when you're under stress? Emotional. So feeling anxious, irritable, worried, hopeless. These are signs that you are under stress, that you're going through some stress. So then we have what's the physical part of it as well. So physical kind of stress. So which means that you experience things like headache, muscle pain, chest pain, high blood pressure, stomach issues, you know, trouble sleeping. These are the type of next stage which are the kind of symptoms that you get when you know that you're under stress. And these are the time you need to sit down and start taking things easy, because when this stress is not managed properly, it can lead to trauma. It can lead to other things that will affect you, both health-wise, physically, emotionally, psychologically. And so that's why we come to mental now. You have difficulty concentrating, you have racing thoughts, you have poor memory, indecisiveness. So, and you have to adopt ways to cope with stress. So the ways you can cope with stress is what we'll be looking at next. So for those that are joining us, this is the perspective with ABIOLA OLAIFA. I just want to welcome you back. So today we are looking at stress. We are looking at anger, stress, and trauma management. How you can cope in this environment, especially when you're expressing this, and how you can manage it, and how you can live a more healthier life. Because stress, anger, stress, and trauma can lead to more severe effect on your body if it's not properly managed. So coping with stress, learning how to cope with stress can help you feel less overwhelmed. So if you're able to cope with your stress, you'll feel less overwhelmed, you'll be healthier, taking and there's several ways you can achieve that, like talking to someone, for support, identifying and removing the stressful situation. If there's something you're doing or something that's happening to you that's causing a lot of stress, it's always better to avoid it and move away from it. And these are ways to manage stress, because when you're overwhelmed, when there's so much stress that you're experiencing, it can lead to a lot more havoc and damage to your body, to your mental well-being, to your physical being, and it can make you sick, and in more severe circumstances it can lead to death as well. So now we're going to look at trauma before we then look at how each of these issues are interrelated. So trauma is a severe emotional response to a stressful or dangerous event that overwhelms a person's ability to process it emotionally. So we look at stress. We say stress, when stress is in you, it's the way you react to it and how it affects your mental well-being. So when you are overwhelmed, when there's so much stress going through you, it goes to become trauma. So it can be caused by direct or indirect experiences such as bodily injury. So these are the things that can lead to trauma: bodily injury, sexual violence, or threat to the lives of the individual or their loved ones. Initial reactions can include confusion, exhaustion, anxiety, sadness, and physical arousal. So there are 3 types of trauma, right? So the very first one we'll be looking at is the one we refer to as the acute trauma. So acute trauma results from a single incident. For example, you experience something, it's just one single incident that happened. That's acute. It happened suddenly. For example, if there's a car accident, and it can lead to acute trauma. Then we have chronic trauma, which is repeated and prolonged, such as domestic violence. You know, when you are experiencing domestic violence, it's chronic because it's happening over and over and over. And it's advisable that if, for example, you're in a marriage and there's chronic violence and it's repeated, it's advisable to leave the marriage, because a lot of people are dying lately experiencing this kind of violence. So once you notice that this is coming too much and it's being repetitive, no matter how much the person apologizes, as long as they are doing it repetitively, then you need to dissociate yourself and move out of such toxic environment. So then we now have complex trauma. It's exposure to varied and multiple traumatic events, often of an invasive interpersonal nature, which means that these are the kind of trauma that comes, and it could be several things. It could be several things that causes the trauma. So trauma is caused by events that put a person at risk of serious harm or death. Right. This event can be one-time occurrence or ongoing. So just as the type that we've looked at, where which result to complex trauma. All right. So one-time event, like accident, such as car crashes, plane crashes, or chemical spills, can be one-time event where the trauma occurs as a result of very bad one-time event. Natural disasters such as hurricanes, earthquakes, or fire. Violent attacks such as nagging, robberies, or sexual assault. When you experience this, they are one time, but it can last a long time. These are memories that people tend not to forget about, and this can cause very, very serious trauma in people's life. I know recently we've just experienced 2 plane crashes in America, and you can imagine that everyone that's involved died, but what effect it leaves in the lives of the family. There was a gentleman being interviewed that said his wife was on the flight where they had the collision, and you can imagine how he would have reacted to it. And if he's not properly managed and properly, supervised and looked after, it can lead to trauma in his life, and it can affect him for the rest of his life. Sudden loss of a loved one, life-threatening medical diagnosis, terrorist attacks, and things like that are one-time events which can cause trauma. Then there's ongoing events as well. Ongoing events are childhood of domestic abuse, bullying, long-term illness, pandemic, living in an unsafe environment, witnessing other experiences, other people experiencing trauma as well. So these are different type. Other factors are genetic, having a mental health history, not having much support from family or friends. These are different types of trauma which needs to be avoided. We also have how we also need to look at how we can cope after a traumatic event. So avoid the use of alcohol, because the more you use alcohol, the more trauma builds into you. Spend time with trusted friends and family. Go to religious houses like churches and mosques and listen to preachings and interactions with people in your local community. Try to maintain routine for meals, exercise, and sleep. This will help you to manage your trauma. Engage in exercise, mindfulness, or other activities that help reduce trauma and stress in your environment. This goes a long way at helping you to manage trauma. Now, having looked at what anger is, what stress is, and what trauma is, it's that important for us to look at how these things relate to us. But before we do that, we're going to take a very short break now. When we come back, we look at what we've looked at, what we've analyzed in anger, stress, and trauma, and how these are intertwined, and how we can avoid it and help our life to live a better life, and also to help the environment and the people all around us. We'll come back after the short break. Thank you.
It is very paramount to take care of our health while we have it. Miracell Plus is stem cell food therapy that helps to rejuvenate aged cells, replicate, restore damaged cells within the body, strengthen the immune system, and assist in preventing the formation of cancerous cells. Miracell heals and cures ailments directly from the cells, not just from the surface. With over 13 powerful organic ingredients, which is proven to provide high quality nutrition to the body. It is 100% clinically proven safe and effective, non-toxic and all natural, halal, NAFDAC and FDA registered with no side effects. We also have Miracle weight loss products, Mira Tiara skincare products, Mira Coffee, Health Inner Coffee, Mira Lalang Coffee for men, Mira Weeduck, Mira Fuel for body detoxification. Contact the telephone numbers for total solution to your health needs. For inquiries, call +44 784 6157 506 or 0808 2300 937. Miracell, rejuvenating health cells, replicating good cells, restoring sick cells, and repairing damaged cells in the body.
ká fapá kún tan kó lè bá a tó pín ẹ̀dá tó bá fẹ́ mókè láyé ní láti fìmọ̀ kún ẹ̀bùn nídìí iṣẹ́ ìgbóhùnsáfẹ́fẹ́. Èyí ni láti fi tó gbogbo ènìyàn létí wípé ààyè ti wà báyìí o láti ní ìmọ̀ kún ìmọ̀ nípa iṣẹ́ ìgbóhùnsáfẹ́fẹ́ lọ́dọ̀ wa ní Mogbede radio and television. Morning class wà, afternoon class àti ìpele basic and advanced tó jẹ́ ti olóṣù mẹ́ta ní ti basic in broadcasting, public speaking, jingle production, contract and proposal àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. Kí ló tún dúró dè? Ìwọ náà máa bọ̀ tààràtà ní Mogbede radio and television tó wà ní Ológun Ẹrú road, Abàpátá after Sheu bus stop, Ìbàdàn. Ẹ sì lè pè wọ́n sórí nọ́mbà yìí 09024686967 tàbí lórí 08136649837 tàbí lórí UK line wọn +447 787 778380. Fi ìmọ̀ fún ẹ̀bùn kí n tó gbé dání kó lè bá a tó ọ jẹ.
Welcome back to The Perspective with ABIOLA OLAIFA on MOGBEDE Radio TV. We are an online radio TV, and you can listen to us on our website, which is radio.mogbede.co.uk. You can also listen to us live on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. Our handle is MOGBEDE Radio TV. You can also listen to us on YouTube, MOGBEDE TV, or MOGBEDE Radio. On the first part of the program, before we went on break, we look at what anger, what stress, and what trauma is. Right. So anger is negative, especially if it is continuous and constant. There's some people that are naturally angry, and anger leads to stress. And when you have numerous stress that's affecting you, this leads to trauma. Recently, I went on a training where we look at trauma management, and there was a list of 25 things that can lead to trauma. And out of that 25, if you've experienced about 15 of it, the chance that you're going to develop dementia at later part of your life is very high because of those things you've experienced, and the chance that you're going to be violent at later part of your life is very high when you've achieved about 18 or 19 of this incident. As a matter of fact, I think because of our background and because of where we're from, I've experienced close to about 22 out of the 25. And things like, you wouldn't imagine there are things that we experience on a daily basis. Things like, have you ever seen an accident? Have you attended or experienced bereavement in the family? Has somebody suddenly died? Maybe somebody young in the family. Things like, have you been beaten before? Have you been slapped before? Have you been robbed before? Honestly, when it came up on the scale, I ticked almost everything because I've experienced everything. I've seen everything. I've seen people being robbed. I've seen gun before. Have you seen a gun before? Have you seen a dead body? You know, these are things that can lead to trauma, and we have to be careful, especially in our environment and the kind of life we're living, especially what we do in front of children. I mean, I was given experience when I was growing up. There was one of my neighbors that the son used to pilfer. I would say pilfer. I don't want to say steal. Pilfer coins, pilfer little money. And this very day, this guy pilfered 5 naira, and the father was so upset and took and put an hot iron on and used the hot iron on him, on his cheek, his back, and his leg. So you can imagine the kind of trauma that boy is going to go through. The effect of that is that this boy will grow up thinking this is how life works, and it leads to more danger for the environment, more danger for this boy, more danger for the family, because he will think within himself that this is how life is. If my dad could do that to me, then I should be able to do that to others. And if we work in this kind of environment or practice this kind of things, it leads to trauma, and it leads to building a very toxic environment for us. So we have to be really, really careful what we do, how we manage anger. Because if you look at the way we walk, even driving on the street, we are so aggressive. Somebody tried to cross you, somebody's trying to come out, you don't want to give them space. This are all anger. You can see the kind of languages we use to ourselves. So we need to be careful. We need to manage our anger, we need to manage our stress, and we need to manage our trauma carefully. We also have to be careful so that the anger that we're exhibiting and the things we do that has become the norm, should not transcend to trauma. And this is where a lot of time things like religion comes in, where we need to imbibe morals and look at our also cultural background and try to address this kind of issues, because it's becoming a dilemma in our midst that anger and stress is now leading to trauma quite a lot, and a lot of people are doing a lot of evil. Even the rhetoric, the things we say, all around, and how we think that we can succeed. Things like, ritual killing all around, things like kidnapping, they are all leading to trauma. You can imagine somebody that's been kidnapped coming out. They come out with so much mental issues, and this can progress to other more problems within our midst. So we need to manage anger very well. We need to be very careful with what we embrace as the norm in the society. Anger especially is a very, very huge problem in our society, and we need to be careful how we manage it, how we respond to it. And stress also, when there's so much stress, it leads to breakdown. I was reading one of the statistics that says that in our society, most of our societies, about 95% of us have one form of mental health problem or the other. It could be stress. Stress may be one of the not as complex as other forms, but stress, anxiety, depression, and so many other issues. And this can lead to PTSD. This can lead to complete mental breakdown. So importantly, that we need to manage our stress very carefully and ensure that it doesn't lead to trauma, and this effect of it on our children. Because everything we do as an adult, the children look at us, and when they see what we do, they also practice it. When we teach our kids, our children, when we practice violence, for example, you have a friend visiting you, you have a little disagreement, and the next thing you're doing is that you're already throwing punches, you're already using bad words, verbal abuse. The kids look at this and they think that's normal. When they grow up to, this is what they want to do. And it's now a competition of who can show much anger, who can show better anger, or higher anger than the other people. That's what we do. And it is very, 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 very wrong for our society and for the kids that we're raising. So we have to be careful as we progress in life, as we raise the kids, that they don't grow up believing that anger is the way. The more angry you can be, the better you are. We have people on the street that any small thing, they're ready to pick up a bottle, they're ready to smash bottle on people, they're ready to pick up knife, they're ready to fight. And look at the world we live now. There's more knife attack, there's more gun attack. The anger, you see maybe someone overtake you where you don't want them to overtake you. You stop their car and you're pointing gun at them, especially in some countries. So you're pointing gun where gun is allowed. You're pointing gun, knife, and things like that, and you're throwing punches. We have to be careful. All this leads to trauma. No, if you think of the effect on yourself, think of the effect on the person that's looking, on the kids that's looking, on the population, and how this will be harvested at the end of the day. So it's been a pleasure discussing about hunger, stress, and trauma today. And I hope that we've learned one or two things. So it's important that we learn to curtail our hunger and learn to suppress it as much as possible. You know, let peace be the word. Let's say peace and thank you. Please and thank you. And even when anger, because at the end of the day, if you have to be hungry, you realize that you damage yourself more than even the person you're expressing the anger to. So it's important that we learn to control our anger and learn to manage our stress so that it doesn't lead to trauma. Because when there's so much trauma in the land, then there's so much disunity, there's so much discomfort, and everyone tends to see each other as if we are here to fight together. So it's been amazing today, and I'm very glad that you've joined us today, and I hope you've learned one or two things in our discourse today, which is anger, stress, and trauma management. The program today is The Perspective with ABIOLA OLAIFA on MOGBEDE Radio TV. When we meet again next time, we'll be talking about another big topical issue that we'll be bringing across to you. And I want to say a big thank you to everyone that's joined us, and for people that are going to join us the next time, we are live on Mondays. If you'd like to join us online, our website is radio.mogbede.co.uk. We are also available on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and our handle is MOGBEDE Radio TV. And we're also available on YouTube, MOGBEDE TV and MOGBEDE Radio. We look forward to meeting you next time. And if you're looking to drop comment or you'd like to share your opinion on what we've discussed today, our line is +44 77 877 8380. We look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you very much for joining us. Take care. Goodbye.